The day Yaira was fired, she begged for her salary. Instead, her boss humiliated her and threw her out. Weeks later, she discovered she was pregnant with triplets. After a one-night encounter with a stranger she would never see again, so she fled the country and raised her daughters alone. 5 years later, fate brought her face to face with that same man. A billionaire CEO who had no idea the 3 little girls calling her Mama were his daughters. What he didn't know was that Yaira was secretly testing him to see if he deserved a place in their lives. What she didn't know was that he was slowly falling in love with her all over again. But when she was framed for a crime, she didn't commit and faced losing everything. It wasn't the lawyers or the executives who came to her rescue. It was 3 little girls who marched into a boardroom, dropped to their knees, and begged a powerful billionaire to save their mother. The morning Yaira broke the 5th dish, she already knew what was coming. She had felt it building all week, that tight, humming tension in Mr. Matt's jaw every time he looked at stuff, the way the other restaurants went quietly about their work whenever she was nearby, giving her that look people give someone they feel sorry for but cannot help. She had been spacing out more than usual. She knew it. She could feel herself doing it, even as it happened, standing in the middle of the kitchen with a stack of plates in her hands, her mind drifting somewhere far away. Back to Lome, back to her mother's voice, back to a version of her life that no longer existed, and then the crash, and then the silence, and then the slow turn of Mr. Matt's head. That was Tuesday. By Friday, he had stopped giving her the look entirely. That was worse. She showed up for her shift on Friday morning the way she always did. Early, quietly, with the particular kind of determination that comes not from confidence, but from having no other option. She wore her uniform carefully. She tied her hair back. She told herself today would be different. She meant it every time she said it, and every time life found a new and creative way to prove her wrong. It happened during the lunch rush. A table of 8 had just been seated near the window, the kind of corporate group that ordered a lot and tipped nothing. Nothing. And Yaira was carrying a tray loaded with their starter dishes when her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. She had told herself not to check it. She knew she should not check it, but something in her gut shifted, the same gut that had been carrying grief like a stone for 2 years since her parents passed. And her hand moved before her brain could stop it. It was a reminder notification from the loan company. 3rd missed installment. Final warning before legal action. The tray tilted. She grabbed for it. She missed. The sound of 5 dishes hitting the floor of a crowded restaurant at lunch hour was not something that faded quietly. Every head in the room turned. A child at a nearby table started crying. One of the corporate men at the window table made a sharp sound of displeasure, and from across the room, Yaira felt Mr. Matt's eyes find her before she even looked up. She knelt on the floor to pick up the broken pieces. Her hands were shaking, not from the embarrassment. She had survived embarrassment before. She was shaking because she had done the mental arithmetic in the 3 seconds since the crash. And she already knew what broken dishes, plus a missed rent payment, plus a legal threat from a loan company equaled. She knew it, and her whole body was responding to that knowledge before her mind had fully caught up. "My office, Mr." Matt said quietly from directly behind her. Now she followed him. The hallway was long and narrow, lit by fluorescent tubes that buzzed overhead. Her shoes squeaked against the linoleum. Mr. Matt walked ahead of her, hands in his pockets, not looking back. His office was small, cramped, smelling of old coffee and printer ink. He sat behind his desk. He did not ask her to sit. "You've been distracted all week." Yaira opened her mouth, closed it. What could she say? It was true. "I gave you chances," Mr. Matt continued. He was not angry. That would have been easier. He was simply tired of her. "Monday, you gave the wrong order to table 6. Wednesday, you burned the J. Yesterday, you forgot to show up for the morning prep shift entirely. I'm sorry, she said, and hated how small her voice sounded. I can do better. I will do better. Just let me. Today makes 5 broken dishes in 1 week, he interrupted. 5. Do you know how much that costs me? Yes, she said quickly. I know. I can pay for them. Just take it out of my salary this month. Half my pay would cover the damages and still leave me. I'm not paying you this month. The words hung in the air between them, cold and final. What? You heard me, Mr. Matt said. He leaned back in his chair, folding his arms. You've cost me more in broken dishes and mistakes this week than you've earned. I'm not paying you for work you didn't do properly. That's not fair, Yaira said, and heard the tremor creeping into her voice. I worked every shift. I stayed late 3 times. The damages don't even come close to. You're fired, Yaira. She stopped talking. The fluorescent light buzzed. Someone laughed in the kitchen, distant and muffled. Please, she said. She was past pride now, past dignity. Please, just let me finish today. Just today, so I can get my monthly pay. I need it. I have debts. I have rent due. I've already made my decision. Matt, please. Security will walk you out. She stared at him. He was already looking at his computer screen, scrolling through something, done with her. Yaira felt wetness on her cheeks. Before she realized as she was crying, she wiped at her face roughly, angry at herself, at him, at the whole situation. I came here alone, she said, voice cracking. I have no family here, no one. I work hard. I've always worked hard. Mr. Matt glanced up, expression unchanged. Then you should have been more careful. The security guard appeared in the doorway, young, awkward, not meeting her eyes. He gestured toward the exit. Yaira walked through the kitchen, where her co-workers looked away, through the dining area, where customers whispered, through the front door, where the afternoon air slapped her face with cold indifference. The street stretched in both directions, full of people who had places to be and people to go home to. She stood on the pavement with her bag on her shoulder and nothing, absolutely nothing, lined up ahead of her. She stood there for a long time. Then she started walking. She did not know where, only that she could not stop. Her feet carried her through Itaewon, past street vendors selling tteokbokki and hotchok, past cosmetic shops blasting K-pop, past groups of tourists laughing and taking photos. The city moved around her like water around a stone. She was invisible, irrelevant, just another foreign worker who had failed to make it. By the time the sun started setting, she found herself in Gangnam, standing outside a bar she had never been to before. It had a warm glow spilling from its windows, soft jazz music drifting into the street. She had never been a drinker, could not afford to be. But tonight, with nowhere to go and no one to call, she pushed the door open and went inside. The bar was quiet, half empty, dim lighting, casting everything in amber. She sat on a stool near the end, away from the few other patrons. The bartender, a man in his 50s with kind eyes, raised an eyebrow. What can I get you? Yaira had no idea. Something strong. He poured her whiskey. She sipped it, winced, felt it burn all the way down. She ordered another. 2 stools away, a man sat alone, nursing his own drink. She noticed him peripherally at first, tall, well-dressed, staring into his glass like it held answers. He could not find. He looked how she felt. Lost. She did not mean to speak, did not plan it. But the alcohol was loosening something inside her. Something that had been wound too tight for too long. Does it get easier? She asked. He looked up, startled. Dark eyes, sharp features, a face that belonged on billboards. He blinked at her. Does what get easier? Life, she said simply, trying, failing anyway. He studied her for a moment, then gestured to the bartender. Another for her and me. They drank in silence. Then he spoke. No, he said quietly. It doesn't get easier. You just get better at pretending it does. Yaira laughed, a bitter, broken sound. That's depressing. It's honest. She turned to look at him properly. He was younger than she had first thought, maybe early 30s, with the kind of exhaustion that came not from lack of sleep, but from lack of purpose. Rough day? He asked. Rough year, she corrected. Rough 2 years. Today was just the cherry on top. Want to talk about it? She should have said no, should have finished her drink and left. But the question was asked so gently, without pity or judgment, that she found herself answering. I got fired today, she said. Lost my job, lost my pay, and I have debts I can't pay, and rent due in a week and no family here, and no plan. She took another sip. I came to Korea because I thought I could make something of myself. Turns out I was wrong. He nodded slowly. Where are you from? Ghana, she smiled sadly. A whole ocean away from home, and somehow I've never felt more lost. I understand that, he said. Do you? More than you'd think. She waited, but he did not elaborate. Instead, he asked, your family back home? The question landed like a punch. Yaira's throat tightened. They died 2 years ago. Car accident. They'd taken loans to help me come here, to study, to build a future. Now those loans are mine, and I can't even keep a job washing dishes. I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry, she said, not unkindly. Sorry doesn't pay bills. He was quiet. Then, you're right, it doesn't. He raised his glass. To unfair circumstances and people who don't understand them. She clinked her glass against his. To that. They drank. The bartender poured another round without being asked. What about you? Yaira asked. The alcohol was making her bold. What's your story? You look like someone who has everything, but feels like he has nothing. He smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. Perceptive. I'm good at reading people. Comes from years of serving them. I have responsibilities I didn't ask for, he said slowly, choosing his words carefully. A name that weighs more than I do. People expect things from me, things I'm not sure I can give. Family? Business? Something like that. Let me guess, Yaira said. They want you to marry someone suitable. Give them grandchildren. Continue the legacy. He looked at her sharply. How did you? Because people with power are the loneliest people I know, she said. You have everything, but none of it's yours. It all belongs to the name, the business, the expectations. He stared at her like she had just solved a puzzle he had been working on for years. What's your name? He asked Yaira. Yaira, he repeated, and she liked the way it sounded in his voice. I'm Kangmin. They talked for hours, about soul, about loneliness, about the gap between who they were and who they were supposed to be. He did not tell her he ran a company, and she did not tell him she had been living in a goshiwon the size of a closet. They were just two people, treading water in different oceans, finding the same air. At some point, his hand was on the bar near hers. Not touching, but close enough that she could feel the heat of him. At some point, she was laughing, actually laughing, and she could not remember the last time that had happened. At some point, he said, You want to get out of here? She knew what he was asking, knew it was a bad idea, knew she should say no. Go back to her tiny room, deal with her problems like an adult. But she was tired of being responsible, tired of being alone. Yes, she said. They left together, stepping into the cool Seoul night. He hailed a taxi. She sat beside him, close enough to feel the warmth of his shoulder against hers. Neither of them spoke. There was nothing to say. The taxi stopped outside a building in a neighborhood she did not recognize. He paid. They got out. She followed him inside, into an elevator, up to a door he unlocked with steady hands. Inside, he turned to her. Are you sure? She was not sure of anything, but she nodded anyway. What happened next was gentle and desperate, and nothing like she had expected. He touched her like she was something precious, something that might break. And maybe that was what she needed, to be treated carefully, just once, to feel less alone, even if only for a night. She woke to sunlight, slicing through unfamiliar curtains and an empty bed. He was gone. No note, no number, just the ghost of warmth on the pillow beside her. And the sick, sinking certainty that she had made a mistake she could not unmake. Yera dressed quickly, quietly, slipping out of the apartment like a ghost. The morning air was cold. She took the subway back to Itaewon, back to her Goshiwon, back to reality. She told herself it was nothing. A mistake born of pain and alcohol and loneliness. She told herself she would forget him. She was wrong on both counts. 3 weeks passed. Yera applied for jobs, every single one she could find. Restaurants, cafes, convenience stores, cleaning services. Most did not respond. The ones that did said her visa situation was complicated, or they had found someone else, or they would keep her resume on file. She was running out of money, running out of time. The loan company called twice a day now. Her landlord had started leaving notes under her door. And then she missed her period. At first, she told herself it was stress. Her body had always been sensitive to pressure, and she was drowning in it. She waited a week, then another. Still nothing. The pregnancy test cost her money she did not have. She bought it at a convenience store, 3 neighborhoods away, where no one knew her. Took it in a public bathroom because her landlady had a habit of going through her trash. 2 lines appeared immediately, stark, undeniable. Yera stared at the test until someone knocked on the door, annoyed, asking if she was done. She shoved the test in her bag and stumbled outside, vision blurring. She walked for hours, did not know where, did not care. Her mind could not process it. Pregnant by a man whose last name she did not know, a man she had met once in a bar on the worst night of her life. The clinic was small, tucked between a pharmacy and a nail salon. She made an appointment for the next day. The technician was a woman in her 40s, brisk and efficient. She spread cold gel on Yera's abdomen, pressed the ultrasound wand against her skin. How far along do you think you are? Maybe 6 weeks. The technician moved the wand, squinting at the screen. Her expression changed. What? Yera asked, heart pounding. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, the woman said slowly. But are you aware that you're carrying multiples? The room tilted. What? Triplets, the technician said, turning the screen toward her. 3. Yera stared at the screen. 3 tiny flickers. 3 heartbeats pulsing in rhythm. Her vision blurred. That's not possible. It's rare, the technician agreed. But it happens. Do you have a support system? Family? The father? Yera shook her head, mute. The technician's expression softened. This is a high-risk pregnancy. You'll need regular monitoring, good nutrition, rest. And you'll need to think carefully about your options. Options. The word hung in the air. Yera left the clinic in a daze, rode the subway back to her Goshiwon, sat on her narrow bed, staring at the grainy ultrasound photo in her hands. 3 babies, 3 lives that did not ask to exist but did anyway. Logic said she could not do this. She had no job, no money, no support, no way to contact the father, even if she wanted to. Every rational voice in her head said this was impossible. But when she put her hand on her still flat stomach, something inside her shifted. These were not abstractions, not problems to solve. They were hers. The only family she had left in the world. Her parents were gone. She was alone in a country that did not want her. But these 3 tiny heartbeats, they were hers to protect, hers to love. The decision did not make sense. It did not have to. She could not stay in Seoul. That much was clear. She would leave before she started showing, before the questions started, before she had to face the impossibility of her situation. In a city that had already chewed her up, she would go home to Ghana. She would figure it out there. She had to. 2 months later, Yera stood in Incheon airport with 2 suitcases and a secret growing inside her. She had sold everything she owned except what fit in those bags. She had negotiated with the loan companies, begged for suspended payments, promised to resume once she was stable. It was a temporary fix, but it bought her time. Seoul spread below the terminal windows, glittering and cold and beautiful in a way that hurt. She had come here with hope, She was leaving with 3 lives inside her, and nothing else. On the plane, she let herself cry silently, face turned toward the window. Not for the man, she barely knew him. Not for the job. It had been killing her slowly anyway. She cried for the version of herself she was leaving behind. The girl who thought she could make it on her own. Who thought hard work was enough. Korea had taught her otherwise. But as the plane lifted off and Seoul disappeared beneath the clouds, Yaira made herself a promise. She would survive this. She would give these children everything she did not have. Stability, love, a mother who did not give up. She did not know how yet. She only knew she would. Ghana welcomed her back with humid air and pitying eyes. Her old neighbors asked questions she did not answer. Relatives she barely remembered offered help she could not accept. She found a small room in Accra, cheaper than her Goshiwon had been, and started looking for work. Remote jobs, data entry, transcription, anything that paid and let her stay home. The pregnancy was hard. Her body ached constantly. She was nauseous for months. But every ultrasound, every flutter of movement, reminded her why she was doing this. At 36 weeks, her water broke in the middle of the night. The birth took 18 hours. She labored alone in a small clinic, gripping the hand of a nurse she had just met, screaming until her voice gave out. And then they were here. Akua came first, loud and furious. Efua followed, quiet and wide-eyed. Sewa arrived last, smaller than her sisters, wailing like she had opinions about the whole process. The nurse placed all 3 on Yaira's chest, tiny and perfect, and hers she held them and sobbed, not from pain, from relief, from overwhelming, terrifying love. "Hello," she whispered. "I'm your mama. I've got you. I promise." The first year was brutal. 3 infants, no partner, barely any help. Yaira survived on 4 hours of sleep and willpower. There were nights she cried into her pillow from exhaustion. Mornings, she woke to 3 smiling faces and found the strength to keep going. By year 2, she had established a routine. The girls were talking now, developing personalities. Akua was bold, bossy, always leading. Efua was gentle, curious, asking endless questions. Sewa was clever, mischievous, always into something. Yaira started taking online courses, business management, certifications, building a resume for a future she was determined to create. Year 3 brought a promotion at her remote job. She could afford a better apartment, a safer neighborhood. The girls had a small yard to play in. Yaira still thought about him sometimes. The man from the bar, the father whose name she barely knew. She wondered if he ever thought about that night. She doubted it. Year 4, a recruiter reached out via LinkedIn, an opportunity at a major firm. The pay was significant. The role was perfect. The location was Seoul. Her stomach dropped. Of all the cities in the world. But she did the math. Korea was massive. The chances of running into him were tiny. And the girls deserved this opportunity. They deserved the life this job could give them. Year 5, she accepted. Booked flights, enrolled Akua, Efua and Silewa in an international school. Told herself this was just a job, just a fresh start. The past was buried. It had to be. The email came on a Tuesday orientation packet for KM Group. She skimmed it without much thought. Corporate policies, building maps, leadership bios, and then she saw the photo. CEO Kangmin. His face stared back at her from the screen. Older now but unmistakable. The room tilted. The laptop screen blurred. Yaira realized, with sickening clarity, that she had just made the worst mistake of her life. Yaira stood outside the KM Group headquarters on Monday morning, staring up at the building like it might swallow her whole. Glass and steel stretched toward the sky, reflecting the early sun in a way that made her eyes hurt. People streamed past her, confident, purposeful, wearing clothes that probably represented a month of her old salary. She smoothed down her blazer. The nicest thing she owned, bought specifically for this job, and tried to remember how to breathe. She could turn around, get back on the subway. fly home to Ghana with the girls, and pretend this never happened. Except she had already signed the contract, already enrolled Akua, Efua, and Sewa in school, already promised them this fresh start. And Seoul was a city of 10 million people. The chances of actually running into him, of having to work directly with him, were small. She would stay invisible, do her job, avoid the executive floors. It would be fine. She repeated that lie to herself all the way through the lobby, into the elevator, up to the 20th floor, where the orientation was being held. The conference room was already half full when she arrived. New employees sat in clusters, chatting nervously, exchanging business cards. Yaira chose a seat near the back, away from the windows, away from attention. She folded her hands in her lap and tried to look calm. A woman from HR stood at the front, smiling brightly, passing out folders thick with paperwork. "Welcome to KM Group. We're so excited to have you all here. Today, we'll go over company policies, your benefits packages, and introduce you to some key members of our leadership team." Yaira opened her folder. Employee handbook, insurance forms, building access procedures. She focused on the words, letting them blur together, anything to keep her mind occupied. "Now," the HR woman continued, "we have a special guest this morning. Our CEO doesn't usually attend new employee orientations, but he wanted to personally welcome this quarter's incoming class." Yaira's stomach dropped. "No." The door at the side of the room opened. Kangmin walked in, and the air changed. Conversations died mid-sentence. People sat up straighter. He moved like someone who had been in command his entire life, not arrogant, just certain. He wore a dark suit, perfectly tailored, his hair shorter than she remembered. 5 years had sharpened him somehow, carved away anything soft. Yaira sank lower in her chair, wishing she could disappear into it. He stopped at the front of the room, hands in his pockets, scanning the faces before him with polite disinterest. Then his gaze landed on her. She stopped breathing. He paused, just for a second. Something flickered across his face. Confusion, maybe, or recognition. She could not tell. His eyes stayed on her a moment too long, and she felt the weight of it like a physical thing. Then he looked away, continuing his scan of the room, and she exhaled shakily. He did not know her. Could not possibly. She looked nothing like the broken woman from that bar 5 years ago. Different hair, different clothes, different everything. She was seeing patterns where none existed, paranoid and foolish. "Good morning," Kangmin said, and his voice was exactly as she remembered, low and steady and dangerous. "I'll keep this brief. KM Group was built on 3 principles: excellence, integrity, and innovation. We expect those values from every person in this building. From entry level to executive, you were chosen because you demonstrated those qualities. Don't make us regret it." A few people laughed nervously. Yaira did not. "Work hard," he continued. "Ask questions, challenge assumptions. If you do that, you'll go far here. If you don't, you won't last long." He glanced at the HR woman, who jumped to attention. "That's all from me. Welcome aboard." He turned to leave, and Yaira felt relief flood through her so intensely she almost laughed. He was going. She had survived. But at the door he stopped, looked back. His eyes found hers again, and this time they stayed. She could not look away, could not breathe, could not do anything but sit there while he studied her face, like he was trying to solve a puzzle he did not know he had. Someone coughed. The moment broke. He left. The HR woman launched into benefit explanations, but Yaira did not hear a word. Her hands were shaking in her lap. She pressed them together, hard, until her knuckles went white. After the orientation ended, people mingled, introducing themselves. A woman about Yaira's age approached, smiling warmly. "Hi, I'm Minji. Business development. You looked as terrified as I felt." Yaira managed a smile. "Yaira, operations analyst. And yes, completely terrified." "Right." Minji lowered her voice conspiratorially. "The CEO is intense. I've heard. He's brilliant, but ruthless. Fired 3 department heads last year for missing targets. Sounds delightful. But also, Minji leaned closer, incredibly single. Half the women in this building have tried. He's not interested. Yaira made a non-committal sound, gathering her things. I should get to my desk. Oh, me too. Let's grab coffee sometime, yeah? It's nice to have friends here. I'd like that. And she would. Minji seemed kind, genuine. Yaira needed allies in this place. She spent her first week keeping her head down, learning systems, analyzing data, staying as far from the executive floor as physically possible. Her work was good. She made sure of it. Thorough reports, insightful analysis, no errors. She arrived early, left late, spoke only when spoken to. By Friday, she had almost convinced herself it would be okay. Then the email came. Meeting request from CEO Kang Min. Monday 9 in the morning, subject, Q3 operations review. Yaira stared at the screen, pulse hammering. It was a group meeting, she realized. Looking at the attendees list, 12 people total. She was just one analyst among many. Routine, professional. Nothing to panic about. She panicked anyway. That weekend, the girls noticed her distraction. Saturday morning, Akua climbed into her lap while she was trying to review notes. Mama, you're doing your worried face. I don't have a worried face. Yes, you do, Ifua said from the floor, where she was coloring. Your eyebrows go like this. She scrunched her face into an exaggerated frown. Serwa giggled. And you chew your lip. I do not chew my lip. All 3 girls stared at her. She released her lip from between her teeth. Okay, maybe a little. But I'm fine, babies. Just thinking about work. Is work hard? Akua asked. Sometimes. Is your boss mean? Yaira thought about Kangmin's face in the orientation, cold and assessing. He's fair, I think. Just very serious. You should make him laugh, Serwa announced. When people laugh, they're nicer. I don't think he's the laughing type, sweetheart. Everyone laughs, Efua said wisely. You just have to find the right joke. Yaira hugged them close, breathing in the smell of their shampoo, letting their warmth steady her. When did you 3 get so smart? We were born this way, Akua said, completely serious. Monday morning arrived too quickly. Yaira dressed carefully, a simple navy dress and blazer. Hair pulled back, minimal jewelry, professional, invisible. She arrived at the executive floor, 5 minutes early, hands clammy, stomach churning. The conference room was already filling up. Senior analysts, department heads, people who had been here for years. Yaira took a seat near the middle, not too prominent, not too hidden. Kang Min entered exactly at 9. Everyone stood. He waved them back down, taking his seat at the head of the table. Let's begin. Revenue projections first. The CFO launched into a presentation. Yaira tried to focus, taking notes, but she was acutely aware of Kang Min's presence. He asked sharp questions, cut through vague answers, praised good work, and dismantled weak analysis with equal efficiency. He was brilliant, she realized. Ruthless, yes, but fair. He cared about the work, not politics. 2 hours in, they reached her section. Operations efficiency metrics. She had prepared thoroughly, knew her data inside and out. Mensa, Kangmin said, and hearing her name in his voice sent a shiver down her spine. Your report suggested reallocating resources from the manufacturing division. Walk us through that. She stood, clicked to her presentation, kept her voice steady. Our current allocation prioritizes legacy systems that are operating at 63% efficiency. If we shift 15% of those resources to automated processes, we project a 28% increase in output within 2 quarters. The CFO frowned. That contradicts our long-term strategy. With respect, Yaira said, meeting his eyes. The long-term strategy was designed 4 years ago. Market conditions have changed. Our competitors have already made this shift. We're falling behind. Silence. The CFO's face reddened. Yaira's heart pounded. She had just contradicted a senior executive in front of the CEO. Stupid. So stupid. Show me the competitor analysis, Kangmin said. She clicked to the next slide. Detailed breakdowns of 3 major competitors, their automation investments, their output increases. She had spent 2 days compiling this data, cross-referencing sources, making sure it was bulletproof. Kangmin studied the screen, expression unreadable. Then he looked at the CFO. She's right. Adjust the strategy. I want a revised proposal by end of week. The CFO's jaw tightened. Yes, sir. Good work, Ms. Menzer. Sit. She sat, hands trembling under the table. Around her, people were looking at her differently now. The new analyst who had just won an argument against the CFO. The meeting continued, but Yaira barely heard it. When it finally ended, people filed out quickly. She gathered her things, desperate to escape. Mrs. Menzer. She froze, turned. Kangmin was standing by the window, hands in his pockets looking at her. Yes, sir? That analysis. How long did it take you? 2 days? 2 days, he repeated. Most analysts would have taken 2 weeks and produced half the insight. I'm thorough. I can see that. He tilted his head slightly. Have we met before? Her heart stopped. No, sir. I don't think so. You seem familiar. I have one of those faces. He studied her for a long moment. She forced herself to hold his gaze, to not fidget, to not give anything away. Perhaps, he said finally. Keep up the good work. Thank you, sir. She left before he could say anything else, before her composure could crack, before the truth could spill out of her like water from a broken dam. Over the following 2 weeks, she saw him more than she wanted to. He started attending meetings he normally delegated, requesting reports directly from her instead of through her supervisor, asking questions that felt less about the work and more about her. Where did she study? Ghana, then online programs. Where did she work before this? Remote consulting, data analysis. Why? Career, opportunity. She kept her answers short, factual, revealing nothing, but she felt his attention on her, like sunlight, through a magnifying glass, focused and burning. 3 weeks into the job, she stayed late to finish a report. The office had emptied out, just the hum of computers and distant traffic outside. She was so focused on her spreadsheet that she did not hear footsteps until someone spoke behind her. You're here late. She jumped, spinning around. Kangmin stood in her cubicle entrance, jacket off, tie loosened, looking more human than she had ever seen him. Just finishing the logistics analysis, she said, heart racing. It's due tomorrow. It's not due until Friday. I know. I like being ahead. He glanced at her screen, at the complex formulas and charts. You always work like this? Like you're racing something. Old habits. She should deflect, should make an excuse and leave. But there was something in his voice, a genuine curiosity, that made her answer honestly. From being poor, she said, when you've had nothing, you work twice as hard to keep what you earn, just in case it disappears. Understanding flickered in his eyes. I know that feeling, do you? Not from poverty, he admitted, but from knowing that everything you have could be taken away if you stop being useful. They looked at each other, and for a moment, Yaira forgot to be afraid. Forgot the secret, forgot everything, except the strange recognition in his eyes, like he was seeing something in her that he saw in himself. You should go home, he said quietly. The work will be here tomorrow. So will you, he smiled, small and surprised. Yes, so will I. She saved her work, shut down her computer, gathered her things. He was still standing there when she left, watching her go, with an expression she could not read, on the subway home. She pressed her forehead against the cool window and tried to slow her breathing. This was dangerous. The way he looked at her, the way she was starting to forget why she needed to stay away. At home, the girls were already asleep, curled together. In the bed, they insisted on sharing despite having their own rooms. She kissed each of their foreheads, breathed in their innocence, their safety. They could never know. He could never know. Too much was at stake. But the universe, it seemed, had other plans. Friday afternoon, she needed a file signed. budget approval for a vendor contract. Her supervisors said Kangmin had the final copy. Just run up and grab his signature. Simple. It was past 7 when she took the elevator to the executive floor. The hallways were empty, silent, except for the soft hum of air conditioning. His office door was slightly open, light spilling out. She knocked. No answer. Knocked again. Nothing. She pushed the door open slowly, meaning to just leave the folder on his desk. Then she saw them. A woman sat on Kangmin's lap, arms draped around his neck, face close to his like she was about to kiss him. She was stunning, elegant in the way Seoul women often were. Designer dress, perfect makeup, the kind of beautiful that came with money and maintenance. Kangmin's hands were on her waist, not pulling her closer, but not pushing her away either. His face was turned slightly, like he was trying to avoid her mouth. But from Yaira's angle, it just looked intimate. Something sharp twisted in Yaira's chest. Jealousy, hot and ugly, and completely unjustified. She had no claim to this man. One night 5 years ago did not mean anything. He was her boss. He was the father of her children. But he did not know that. And she had worked very hard to keep it that way. She should not feel anything. But she did. God, she did. The woman noticed her first, eyes cutting to the door. Oh, you have company. Her tone was dismissive, territorial, like Yaira was an interruption to something important. Kangmin's head snapped toward the door. When he saw Yaira, something flashed across his face. Surprise, maybe annoyance. She could not tell. He stood abruptly, dislodging the woman from his lap. Mrs. Mensah. His voice was formal, cold, back to CEO mode. I'm sorry to interrupt, Yaira said, proud of how steady her voice sounded. I just need a signature, but I can come back tomorrow. No, it's fine. Leave it on my desk. She walked to the desk, movement stiff, placed the folder down without looking at him. The woman was watching her with barely concealed irritation. This is Ji-woo, Kangmin said, and Yaira had not asked, but apparently he felt the need to explain. Family friend. Fiancé, practically, Ji-woo corrected, smiling sweetly. Our families have been planning this for years. Kangmin's jaw tightened. We've discussed this. That's not happening. Not yet, Ji-woo said, standing, smoothing her dress. But you'll come around. You always do. Yaira wanted to leave. Needed to leave. This was none of her business. But her feet would not move. I'll have that signed by morning, Kangmin said, looking at Yaira. Thank you, she managed. And finally, her legs cooperated. She made it to the elevator before her composure cracked. Made it to the lobby. Outside, into the cool evening air. Her hands were shaking. Her chest felt tight. Stupid. So stupid. He was not hers. Would never be hers. She was here to work. To provide for her daughters. Not to revisit a past that should stay buried. But that night, lying in bed, she could not stop seeing the image. Ji-woo on his lap, his hands on her waist, the casual intimacy of it. The next morning, Minji cornered her at the coffee machine, eyes bright with gossip. Did you see her last night, Ji-woo? Briefly. She's been after him for years, Minji said, stirring sugar into her cup. Daughter of some business partner. Her family keeps pushing the marriage idea, but he always says no. Why do they keep trying then? Because he hasn't said yes to anyone else. And in families like that, marriage is business. She's persistent, I'll give her that. Does he? Yaira paused, hating herself for asking, does he date anyone? Minji laughed. Seo Kang? No. I've been here 3 years, never seen him with anyone. Some people think he's married to the company. Others think he's just not interested in relationships. Why? You curious? Just making conversation. Sure, Minji said, grinning. Just conversation. Yaira took her coffee back to her desk and tried very hard not to think about Kangmin at all. She failed spectacularly. Saturday arrived with chaos. KM Group was hosting a community family day at a park in Gangnam, some corporate social responsibility initiative. Employees were encouraged to bring their families, enjoy the activities, build morale. Yaira had not planned to attend. But Friday evening, the girls had found the flyer on her desk and latched onto it with the single-minded determination only 5-year-olds possessed. Please, Mama, please. There's face painting and bounce houses, and we never get to see where you work. It's just a park, babies. Nothing special. But all the other kids from school are going with their parents, Akua said, deploying the most devastating weapon in a child's arsenal. Peer pressure. Ifua added her wide-eyed, pleading look. Sewa just climbed into Yaira's lap and hugged her tightly, which was completely unfair. Fine, Yaira sighed, but we're not staying long. Saturday morning, she dressed them in their favorite sundresses, Akua in yellow, Efua in pink, Sewa in blue. They practically vibrated with excitement the entire subway ride. The park was already crowded. When they arrived, families sprawled on blankets, children screaming joyfully. Food vendors selling everything from tteokbokki to ice cream. The KM Group tent was set up near the center, company banners fluttering in the breeze. Yaira held the girl's hands tightly. Scanning the crowd, she could avoid him here easily. It was a massive park and hundreds of people. They would play, eat, leave. Simple. Mama, look. Bounce house. Sewa pulled toward the inflatable castle. Okay, let's go. They spent an hour bouncing, sliding, laughing. Yaira felt herself relax. This was good, normal. The girls deserved this. Then Akua kicked a ball too hard. It rolled away from the play area toward the company tent. Before Yaira could stop her, Sewa took off running after it. Sewa, wait. But Sewa was fast, and Yaira was holding Akua and Afua's hands. By the time she let go and started after her, Sewa had reached the ball. So had someone else. Kangmin bent down, picked up the ball before Sewa could grab it. He looked different in casual clothes, black jeans, and a simple shirt, but still expensively put together, still unmistakably him. He held the ball out to Sewa, expression awkward, like he was not sure how to interact with a small child. Here, Sewa beamed up at him. Thank you. She bowed, dramatic and exaggerated, the way Yaira had taught them to be polite. Kangmin blinked, startled, then huffed something that might have been a laugh. Before Yaira could reach them, Akua and Efua arrived, flanking their sister like tiny bodyguards. That's our ball, Akua announced. I gathered that, Kangmin said. The three girls stared up at him with unnerving intensity. Then Akua crossed her arms. You're Mama's boss. Kangmin's eyebrows rose. I am. Are you nice to her? Yaira arrived, breathless, mortified. Girls, don't bother. She stopped when Kangmin looked up at her. Their eyes met, held. Everything else faded into background noise. Mama! Efua tugged her hand. We were just asking if he's nice to you at work. He's very professional, Yaira said carefully. Professional means boring. Sewa whispered loudly to her sisters. Kangmin's mouth twitched. I've been called worse. Yaira felt like she was watching a disaster unfold in slow motion. Her daughters, standing in front of their father, completely oblivious. Him, looking at them with something curious and unguarded in his expression. Your daughters? He asked, even though he clearly knew the answer. Yes. There, he paused, searching for words, spirited. That's a polite way of saying we're trouble, Akua said cheerfully. I didn't say that, but you thought it. Adults always think it. He laughed then, a real laugh, surprised and genuine. The sound did dangerous things to Yaira's heart. What are your names? He asked, crouching down to their level. They introduced themselves eagerly, talking over each other, explaining that they were triplets, that Akua was oldest by 4 minutes, that Efua liked drawing, that Sewa could run really fast. And Kangmin listened, actually listened, asking questions, responding to their nonsense with a patience Yaira had never seen from him. Do you want to see the bounce house? Sewa asked, slipping her small hand into his without hesitation. Yaira's breath caught. That trust, that immediate comfort, like some part of Sewa recognized him. Oh, he's busy, Yaira said quickly. We should. I'm not busy, Kangmin interrupted, standing still holding Sewa's hand. He looked at Yaira. Unless you'd rather I didn't. She should say yes. Should take her daughters and leave. Before this got more complicated. But Akua and Afua were already grabbing his other hand, pulling him toward the bounce house, chattering excitedly, and the look on his face, like he had just discovered something unexpected and precious, stopped every protest in her throat. It's fine, she heard herself say. So she followed them, heart pounding, watching Kangmin, the ruthless CEO who made grown men nervous. Dragged around a park by 3 5-year-old girls who had decided he was theirs now. They pulled him to the bounce house first, but he stopped at the entrance, looking uncertain. I don't think adults are allowed in there. Then you have to watch us, Akua declared, and tell us if we do something cool. Yeah, Afua agreed. Mama never watches properly. She's always on her phone doing work stuff. Yaira felt a stab of guilt. I watch you. With one eye, Sewa said matter-of-factly. The other eye is always on the screen. Kangmin glanced at Yaira, something soft in his expression. I'll watch. With both eyes. The girls squealed and ran into the bounce house. Yaira stood beside Kangmin, arms crossed, watching 3 yellow, pink, and blue blurs jump and tumble. They're right, you know, Kangmin said quietly. You do look at your phone a lot. I have a lot to manage. I understand that. They stood in silence. It should have been awkward, but it was not. Just 2 people watching children play, the afternoon sun warm on their shoulders. Look, look! Sewa yelled from inside the bounce house, attempting a flip and landing on her face. She popped up immediately, grinning. Did you see? Very impressive, Kangmin called back, and Yaira heard the smile in his voice. You're good with them, she said before she could stop herself. I'm really not. I have no idea what I'm doing. Could have fooled me. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and she saw something in his eyes she could not name. They make it easy. They're remarkable. They are. They look like you. Her breath caught. People say that. But not like their father. The question was casual, but Yaira felt the weight of it. He's not in the picture. By choice. It's complicated. Complicated how? She should change the subject. Should deflect. But standing here, watching her daughters play, while their father stood beside her completely unaware. The absurdity of it all made her reckless. He doesn't know they exist, she said quietly. And I'd like to keep it that way. Kangmin was quiet for a moment. Why? Because some things are better left alone. Before he could press further, all 3 girls came tumbling out of the bounce house, sweaty and energized. We're hungry, Akua announced. Ice cream, Sewa added. Please? Afua gave her best pleading face. Yaira checked her watch. We should probably head home soon. Or, Kangmin said, we could get ice cream. 3 pairs of eyes swung to him, with identical, hopeful expressions. Then they turned to Yaira in perfect synchronization. The triplet attack formation. Please, Mama, she sighed. Fine, but just ice cream. Then we're leaving. The girls cheered. Sewa grabbed Kangmin's hand again, pulling him toward the ice cream vendor. Akua and Afua flanked Yaira, chattering about flavors. At the vendor, Kangmin pulled out his wallet. Yaira stopped him. I can pay for my own children. I know you can, he said, but I'd like to, please. Something in the way he said, please made her relent. He ordered 4 ice creams, strawberry for Akua, chocolate for Afua, vanilla for Sewa, and asked Yaira what she wanted. I don't need one. Mama never gets ice cream, Afua said sadly. She says it's too expensive. Kangmin's expression shifted. He turned back to the vendor. Make that 5. What flavor? I'm really fine. Yaira, her name in his mouth soft and firm. What flavor? Mango, she said quietly. They sat on a park bench, the girls between them, swinging their legs and comparing ice cream choices. Kangmin listened to their endless chatter with what seemed like genuine interest. Do you have kids? Akua asked suddenly. He nearly choked on his ice cream. No, I don't. Why not? Akua. Yaira warned. That's personal. It's okay, Kangmin said. Honest answer? I never thought about it much. My work takes up most of my time. That's sad, Afro said. Work is boring. Kids are fun. You make a compelling argument. You should get some kids, Serwa suggested. Then you won't be lonely. What makes you think I'm lonely? All three girls looked at him like the answer was obvious. You have the same face Mama has sometimes, Akua said. When she thinks we're asleep, but we're not, she stares out the window and looks sad. Yaira's throat tightened. She had not realized they noticed. Kangmin glanced at her, something understanding in his eyes. I see. They finished their ice cream as the sun started its descent, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The girls were finally winding down, their earlier energy fading into sleepy contentment. We should go, Yaira said, standing. Say thank you to Mr. Kang. Thank you, Mr. Kang, they chorused. Can we see you again? Serwa asked, voice small and hopeful. Kangmin crouched down to their level. Would you like that? 3 enthusiastic nods. He looked up at Yaira, asking permission without words. She should say no. Should end this before it went any further. But the hope in her daughter's faces stopped her. We'll see, she said, which was not a no. The girls seemed satisfied with that answer. They waved goodbye, and Yaira herded them toward the subway station. She glanced back once. Kangmin was still standing there, watching them leave, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable. Monday morning came too fast. Yaira arrived at work to find a meeting request waiting from Kangmin. Subject line, strategic planning, your input needed. Just the two of them. Her stomach knotted. She wanted to decline, make an excuse. But you did not decline meetings with the CEO. At 3 in the afternoon, she knocked on his office door. Come in. He was at his desk, jacket off, shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked up when she entered, and something in his expression softened. Miss Mensah, sit. She sat spine straight, hands folded in her lap, professional, distant. I wanted to discuss the automation project, he said, opening a file. Your analysis was thorough, but I have questions about implementation timeline. They talked through logistics, timelines, resource allocation. It was all perfectly professional, perfectly normal until it was not. The girls, he said suddenly, closing the file. They're wonderful. Thank you. How long have you been in Seoul? A few months. And before that? Ghana, raising 3 children alone in a foreign country, he said quietly. That takes strength. It takes not having another choice. Still, it's admirable. She did not know what to say to that. The silence stretched. Can I ask you something? He said. Of course. At the park. You looked not scared exactly. Cautious. Why? Because you're their father, and you don't know it. Because letting you close is dangerous. Because I'm terrified of what happens when the truth comes out. I'm always cautious, she said instead. It's safer. Safer than what? Than hoping for things that won't last. He leaned back in his chair, studying her. What makes you think they won't last? Experience. That's a lonely way to live. It's a realistic way to live. Maybe, he said. Or maybe you're just scared. The words hit harder than they should have. She stood abruptly. Is that all you needed? For the project? Yaira, Miss Mensah, she corrected. At work, it's Ms. Mensah. Fine. Mensah. But the way he said it felt like a challenge. That's all. For now. She left before he could see how much the conversation had shaken her. Over the next 2 weeks, he found more reasons to work with her directly. Late meetings, strategy sessions, coffee runs that felt too casual. He asked careful questions about Ghana, about her daughters, about how she ended up in Seoul. She answered selectively, dancing around truth. The girls asked about him constantly. When can we see Mr. Kang again? Does he like us? Can we invite him for dinner? Yaira deflected, but guilt gnawed at her. They had bonded with him so easily, so completely. Like some part of them knew. 3 weeks after the park, she was working late again. Most people had gone home. She was deep in spreadsheets when footsteps approached her desk. Kang Min, jacket slung over his shoulder, tie loose. You're here late again. Big presentation tomorrow. The merger analysis? Yes, he glanced at her screen. Looks solid. You should go home. Soon. Yaira. He sat on the edge of her desk, too close, too casual. When's the last time you left this office before 8? I don't keep track. I do. You're here before everyone else and leave after. That's not sustainable. I'm fine. You're exhausted. She looked up at him then, ready to argue, but the concern in his eyes stopped her. I need this job, she said quietly. I need to prove I deserve it. You've already proven that. Have I? Or are people still waiting for me to fail? Is that what you think? It's what I know. I'm a foreign employee, a single mother, someone who came from nothing. People are watching. I can't afford to give them reasons to doubt me. Kang Min's jaw tightened. Who said that to you? No one had to say it. I've lived it. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, come on. What? You need a break. Come with me. I have work. It'll be here tomorrow. Come on. Against her better judgment, she followed him. Down to the parking garage. To a car that was nice but not ostentatious. He opened the passenger door. Where are we going? Somewhere you can breathe. She should refuse, should go home to her daughters. But she was so tired of fighting, of holding everything together alone. She got in the car. He drove them to the Han River, parked near a quiet section of the walking path. They got out, stood by the railing, watching the city lights reflect on the dark water. I come here sometimes, he said. When the office gets too loud, it's quiet. Exactly. They stood in silence. It should have been awkward, but somehow it was not. Can I tell you something? He said. Okay. That night we met, at the park. When I saw you with the girls, something about it felt right. I don't know how else to explain it. Her heart hammered against her ribs. And these past few weeks, he continued. Working with you, getting to know you. It's been the first time in years I've felt like I was connecting with someone real. Not the CEO, not the name, just me. Kang Min, I know this is inappropriate, he said quickly. I know I'm your boss and there are rules and complications. But I needed you to know. I'm not good at this, at feelings, at any of it. But around you, I want to try. She could not breathe. Could not think. The truth was right there, pushing at her teeth, desperate to escape. Tell him. Tell him now. I can't, she whispered. Can't what? This, whatever this is, I can't. Why not? Because you don't know me. Not really. Then let me know you. You can't. Why not? Because. The words caught in her throat. Because some things are too complicated to fix once they're broken. He turned to face her fully. What are you afraid of? Everything. Losing my job, losing my daughters, losing you before I even have you. I should go, she said instead. The girls will wonder where I am. He drove her back to the office in silence. At her car, he stopped her with a hand on her arm. The touch burned Yaira. She looked up. If there's something you need to tell me. There isn't. The lie tasted bitter. Good night then. She drove home with white knuckles and a heart that would not stop racing. At home, the girls were asleep. Her neighbor who watched them dozing on the couch. Yaira paid her, thanked her, locked the door behind her. Her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. It's Kang Min. I got your number from HR. I'm sorry if I overstepped tonight, but I'm not sorry for wanting to know you. Sleep well. She stared at the screen until it went dark. Then she typed and deleted 5 different responses before finally turning off her phone and burying her face in her pillow. This was going to end badly. She could feel it. 2 days later, everything fell apart. Yaira was called into an emergency meeting. No explanation, just a terse summons from legal. In the conference room, 5 people waited. Legal, HR, the CFO, security, and Kang Min standing by the window, back to the room. Her stomach dropped. Mensa, the head of legal, began. We've discovered a security breach. Confidential merger documents were leaked to a competitor. The leak originated from your access credentials. The room tilted. That's impossible. I would never. The evidence is here. The CFO pushed a tablet toward her. Timestamps, file transfers, her login, her digital signature. It looked real, damning, irrefutable, but she had not done it. I didn't do this, she said, voice steady, despite the panic clawing up her throat. I swear to you I didn't. The evidence is clear, Legal interrupted. She turned to Kang Min. He was still facing the window, shoulders rigid. Kang Min, please, look at me. He did not move. Please, finally he turned. His face was stone, cold, distant, and his eyes, when they met hers, were full of disappointment and something worse. Betrayal. The evidence is clear, Miss Mensah, he said, voice flat. A formal, no warmth, no recognition of everything they had shared. Ms. Mensah, not Yaira. The distance in those two words shattered something in her chest. I need you to believe me, she said, not caring that everyone else was watching. Please, I didn't do this. His jaw tightened. He looked away. You'll be placed on immediate suspension pending investigation. Badge and access cards. Now, her hands shook as she removed them from around her neck, placed them on the table. The sound they made, small and final, echoed in the silence. Kang Min, security will escort you out. The guard appeared in the doorway, young, uncomfortable, not meeting her eyes. She stood on numb legs, gathered her dignity around her like armor. At the door, she stopped, turned back. Kang Min had returned to the window, hands in pockets, shoulders tight. I thought you were different, she said quietly. I thought you'd at least ask, at least listen. He did not respond, did not turn around. She left. Security walked her through the office, past co-workers who stared, past Minji, whose eyes were wide with shock, past her desk, where she was allowed to collect only personal items, nothing work-related. Outside, the afternoon sun was bright and merciless. Souls stretched in every direction, glittering and cold. Yaira stood on the pavement and thought bitterly that this city had a cruel sense of déjà vu. She made it home before falling apart. The girls were at school. She had 3 hours before pickup. She used 2 of them to cry and 1 to pull herself together. Someone had set her up. But who and why? And how could she prove her innocence when the evidence was so perfectly constructed? She picked up the girls from school. They were quieter than usual. Mama, Akua said in the car. Are we in trouble? Yaira's heart clenched. No, baby. Why would you think that? A boy at school said our car is stolen. He said people like us don't have nice things. The car was a modest lease, nothing extravagant. But to a 5-year-old being taunted, it did not matter. That boy is wrong, Yaira said firmly, and mean. Don't listen to him. But over the next few days it got worse. Sewa came home crying because a teacher asked, in front of the whole class, if her mother really worked at KM Group, or if that was a misunderstanding. Efua stopped eating, just pushed food around her plate, silent, withdrawing into herself. Akua turned angry. I hate school, everyone's mean. I want to go back to Ghana. Yaira held them while they cried, reassured them. Their mama did nothing wrong, that this would pass, that they were safe, but she did not believe it herself. Saturday morning, none of them would get ready for school. I'm not going, Akua said, arms crossed. They'll just be mean again. Me neither, Ifua whispered. Sewa threw her uniform across the room. Yaira knelt in front of them, exhausted and aching. What do you want to do? The 3 of them exchanged that look. The eerie triplet communication that happened without words. We want to see Mr. Kang, Sewa said. Absolutely not. Please, Mama. Ifua's voice was so small. We'll tell him you didn't do it. He'll listen to us. He won't. He will, Akua insisted. He likes us. He'll believe us even if he doesn't believe you. The logic was 5-year-old simple and absolutely heartbreaking. We can't just show up at his office. But Akua was already putting on her shoes. Ifua followed. Sewa grabbed her favorite stuffed rabbit for moral support. Yaira was too tired to fight them. She texted their usual driver. He arrived within 20 minutes. When she told him where they were going, He hesitated. Miss Yaira, I don't think. Please, she said. Just take us. The girls were eerily quiet during the drive, holding hands, faces set with determination that did not belong on 5-year-olds. At KM Group, Yaira tried one more time. We should go home. No, all three said simultaneously. They marched into the lobby like tiny soldiers. The receptionist's eyes widened. Can I help? But the girls were already heading for the elevators. Yaira ran after them, apologizing to the receptionist, to the security guard, to everyone they passed. On the executive floor, Kangmin's secretary stood from her desk. I'm sorry, he's in a board meeting, you can't. The girls did not stop. They ran straight for the boardroom doors, pushed them open with all their small might, and burst inside. 20 faces turned toward the interruption. Shareholders in expensive suits, department heads, and at the head of the table, Kangmin, frozen mid-sentence. Before anyone could react, all three girls dropped to their knees on the boardroom floor. Please, Akua's voice rang out, clear and desperate. Our mama is innocent. You have to believe us. The room erupted in murmurs. Shareholders shifted uncomfortably. Someone whispered, Whose children are these? Kangmin stood slowly, face pale. Girls, everyone's being mean, Sewa sobbed. They say Mama's a thief, but she's not. She works so hard. She would never. Please investigate properly, Afua added, tears streaming down her face. Please. She's all we have. The murmurs grew louder. Yaira stood in the doorway, mortified, broken, wanting to grab her daughters and run but unable to move. An older shareholder, Mr. Cho, leaned toward his neighbor. His voice carried in the shocked silence. Those children, they're black, aren't they? What is this company coming to? Hiring people who? He did not finish. He crossed the room in 3 strides, grabbed Mr. Cho by his collar, hauled him half out of his chair. The entire room gasped. Finish that sentence, Kangmin said, voice deadly quiet, and you'll regret it. Absolute silence, Mr. Cho's face was red, eyes bulging. Kangmin released him, stepped back. His hands were shaking. He never lost control. Never. This meeting is over, he said. Everyone out. But the quarterly. Out. The board filed out quickly, muttering, shooting glances at the girls still kneeling on the floor. At Yaira, frozen in the doorway. At Kangmin, chest heaving, fury radiating off him in waves. When the room was empty, he knelt in front of the girls. Are you mad at us? Akua asked, voice very small now. No, his voice was gentler. I'm not mad. Will you help Mama? He looked at them, really looked, and Yaira saw the exact moment everything changed. The way his eyes moved from face to face. The way his expression shifted from confusion to recognition, to shock. He saw it, the resemblance, his eyes, his nose, his stubborn jaw on Akua's face. His hands were shaking when he said, Yes, I'll help her. The girls exhaled in relief. The driver appeared in the doorway, panting, apologizing profusely. Kangmin waved him off. Take them home. All of them. I'll handle this. Yaira finally found her voice. Kangmin, not now, he said, not looking at her. I'll call you. She gathered the girls, who went willingly now, satisfied they had accomplished their mission. In the elevator, they hugged her tightly. He's going to fix it, Mama, Sewa said confidently. I know he will. Yaira said nothing, just held them close and tried not to fall apart. After they left, Kangmin stood alone in the empty boardroom. He pulled out his phone, called security. I need you to reinvestigate the leak, quietly. I want to know if the evidence was fabricated. Sir, we already verified. Do it anyway. He hung up, made a second call. To a private investigator he had used once before. I need a complete background check. Yaira Mensah, everything, where she's been for the past 5 years, what she's done, and I need a DNA test. His hand tightened on the phone. I think she's hiding something, and I need to know what. The private investigator delivered his report on Monday morning. Kangmin sat in his office, door locked, phone off, reading through 43 pages that dismantled everything he thought he knew. Yaira Mensah, left Seoul 5 years ago. 3 months after that night at the bar, the timeline was in the report, clinical and precise. She had been fired from a restaurant in Itaewon, disappeared from her Goshiwon without forwarding information, flew back to Accra, Ghana. 7 months later, she gave birth to triplets at a clinic in Accra, 3 daughters, Afua, Sewa. Kangmin did the math once, then again, then a third time, even though the answer did not change. The glass of whiskey in his hand cracked. He did not notice until blood dripped onto the papers, red blooming across the black and white text. He had daughters, 3 of them, 5 years old, and she never told him. The DNA results were in a separate envelope. He opened it with shaking hands, even though he already knew what it would say. The girls had his eyes, his nose. Akua had his stubborn jaw. How had he not seen it immediately? Because you weren't looking, a voice in his head answered. Because you never thought to look. Probability of paternity, 99-97%. He stared at the number until his vision blurred. 5 years. 5 years of birthdays, and first words, and skinned knees, and bedtime stories. Gone, lost. He would never get them back. The fury that rose in him was hot and immediate, and directed at everyone. At Yera for hiding this, at himself for not finding her, at the universe for its cruel timing. But beneath the fury was something else, something that felt like grief. He had a family, had one all along, and he had been completely, devastatingly alone while they existed without him. His phone buzzed. Security, he answered. Sir, we found something. The leak, it was not Ms. Menza. Kangmin's hand tightened on the phone. Explain. The evidence was fabricated. Very sophisticated, but fabricated nonetheless. We traced it back to an external contractor hired by the CFO. He's been embezzling for months. When Ms. Menza's analysis got too close to exposing the discrepancies, he framed her to discredit her work and buy himself time. The CFO, the same man who had smiled and nodded while Yera was escorted out of the building. Bring me everything, Kangmin said, voice cold. Every transaction, every email, every piece of evidence. And call legal. I want him arrested today. Yes, sir. He hung up. Sat in the silence of his office. Then he sent a message to Yera. We need to talk tonight. I'm sending a car. Please come. He did not say please often, did not beg, but he was begging now. Her response came 20 minutes later. Okay. Yera stood outside Kangmin's building that evening, staring up at the penthouse level, trying to remember how to breathe. His message had been brief, but something in the tone told her everything had changed. He knows, she thought. Somehow he knows. The elevator ride up felt like walking to her own execution when the doors opened directly into his penthouse. He was standing by the window, back to her, shoulders rigid. Come in, he said without turning around. She stepped inside. The space was massive, minimalist, expensive in a quiet way. It looked nothing like the place she had woken up in 5 years ago. Different building, different life. He turned to face her. His expression was carefully blank, but his eyes were full of everything. The evidence against you was fabricated, he said. The CFO set you up to cover his own crimes. He's been arrested. You're cleared. Fully. You'll be reinstated tomorrow with back pay and a formal apology from the company. Relief flooded through her, so intense she had to grab the back of a chair to stay upright. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. He moved to the coffee table, picked up a folder, held it out to her. She took it with trembling hands. The PI report. Her entire life for the past 5 years, documented in excruciating detail. And beneath it, the DNA results. Her legs gave out. She sat down hard on the couch, the papers falling from her hands. When were you going to tell me? His voice was quiet, too quiet. I don't know. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. He laughed, bitter and broken. 5 years, Yera. 5 years I had daughters and didn't know it. I didn't know how to find you, she said, and hated how weak it sounded. I didn't even know your full name, just Kangmin. Do you know how many Kangmins there are in Seoul? You've been working for me for weeks, he said, voice rising. Weeks. You knew exactly where I was. You saw me every day and said nothing. I was scared. Of what? Of me? Of losing them. She stood, hands clenched into fists. Of you taking them away. Of you deciding I wasn't good enough. That they deserved better than a mother who could barely keep a job, who lived in a room the size of a closet, who had nothing to offer them but love. Love. You think I would have taken them from you? I don't know what you would have done. I didn't know you. I still don't. Not really. We had one night 5 years ago. One night of being broken and desperate and stupid. That doesn't make you a father. That doesn't make us anything. The words hung between them, sharp and cutting. Kang Min was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. You're right. One night doesn't make me a father, but 5 years of raising them alone, of working yourself to exhaustion, of protecting them and loving them and giving them everything. That makes you their mother, and I would never try to take them from you. Yaira's eyes burned. She looked away. But they're mine too, he continued. And I've missed 5 years. First steps, first words, every moment that I can never get back. Because you were scared. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I don't want your apology. He moved closer, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel the heat of him. I want the truth, all of it. Why you left. How you survived, everything. So she told him. About getting fired. About the bar. About waking up alone and spending weeks looking for work before realizing she was pregnant. About the terror of seeing 3 heartbeats on that ultrasound screen. About choosing to keep them, even when every logical voice said she could not. She told him about Ghana, about laboring for 18 hours alone, about the first year surviving on 4 hours of sleep and pure willpower, about building a career from nothing so her daughters could have the opportunities she never did. She told him about the choice to come back to Seoul. About the sick feeling when she saw his photo in the orientation packet, about every day since spent terrified he would recognize her. And at the park, she said quietly, when I saw you with them, when I saw how easily they loved you and how gentle you were with them, I wanted to tell you. I almost did. But then I walked into your office and saw that woman on your lap, and I remembered that you have a whole life I know nothing about, that I'm just an employee, that we're nothing to each other. Ji-woo, Kang Min said, jaw tight. She forced herself there. I was trying to get her off without being rude when you walked in. I have no interest in her. I never have. You don't owe me explanations. Yes, I do. He caught her hand and she let him. Because you're not just an employee. You haven't been since the moment I saw you at orientation and felt like I knew you. Since I watched. You challenged the CFO without fear. Since your daughters grabbed my hands at the park and something in my chest said yes, this, them. Yaira's throat was too tight to speak. I was falling for you, he said. Before I knew about the girls, before any of this, I was falling for the woman who worked harder than anyone else, who loved her children fiercely, who looked at me like I was just a person, not a name or a position. And then I found out you'd been lying, and it felt like being broken all over again. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I know, but you did anyway. They stood there, hands joined, the truth finally laid bare between them. I don't know how to fix this, Yaira said. Neither do I, Kang Min admitted, but I want to try, for them, for us. Will you let me? She looked up at him, saw the hope and hurt and determination in his eyes. Yes, she whispered. He exhaled like he had been holding his breath for days. I want to be their father, he said. Really be their father, not just a name on paper. I want bedtime stories and school pickups and dance recitals and all of it. I've missed 5 years. I won't miss any more. Okay, and you? His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheek. I want to know you, the real you. No more secrets, no more hiding. Can you do that? It was terrifying. The most terrifying thing she had ever agreed to. but she nodded. Yes. He rested his forehead against hers, and they stood like that for a long time, breathing the same air, beginning to heal. The next morning, Yaira returned to KM Group to a formal apology from the board. Reinstatement with back pay and a promotion. The CFO was led out in handcuffs while employees whispered and stared. Yaira kept her head high. Minji found her at lunch, eyes wide. Is it true he framed you? Yes, I knew it. I knew you wouldn't do that. Minji hugged her tightly. I'm so glad you're back. Me too. But the real changes were happening outside the office. That Friday evening, Kang-min came to dinner. The girls opened the door and screamed with joy, tackling him in a three-person hug that nearly knocked him over. Mr. Kang-min, you came. You're here. Are you staying for dinner? He laughed, real and warm, and met Yaira's eyes over their heads. If your mama says it's okay, Yaira said softly. Dinner was chaotic. The girls talked over each other, telling him everything about their week. He listened to it all, asking questions, genuinely interested. When Sewa spilled her juice, he cleaned it up without comment. When Akua and Ifua argued over who got the last dumpling, he cut it in half with the wisdom of someone learning very quickly. After dinner, the girls dragged him to their room to show him their drawings, their toys, their everything. Yaira watched from the doorway as he sat on the floor, surrounded by 5-year-old chaos, looking more relaxed than she had ever seen him. Story time, Akua announced, shoving a book at him. I'm not sure I'm good at this, he said. Just read it, Ifua said patiently. Will help if you mess up. So he read, did all the voices, made them laugh, let them correct his pronunciation. Halfway through, Sewa climbed into his lap, head against his chest. He froze for just a moment, then wrapped his arm around her, continuing the story. By the end, all three were drowsy, leaning against him. Yaira helped tuck them into bed. They insisted Kang-min kiss them goodnight. He did, awkward but genuine, and the look on his face when they said, "Good night, Mr. Kang-min," in sleepy unison, was something Yaira knew she would remember forever. Outside their room, he leaned against the wall, looking dazed. That was, I don't even have words. They love you already, Yaira said. It's terrifying how fast they decided you were theirs. I'm theirs, he said simply. However, they'll have me. Over the following weeks, he became part of their routine. Wednesday dinners, Saturday morning park visits, Sunday afternoon movies. He learned to braid hair, badly at first, then better. He learned that Akua needed firmness, Ifua needed gentleness, and Sewa needed someone to match her mischief. He learned to be a father. And somewhere in the middle of it all, he and Yaira learned each other. Late nights, talking after the girls went to sleep. Shared coffee before work. Stolen moments in his office that were less about business and more about just being together. One evening, 6 weeks after the truth came out, the girls were at a sleepover with their school friends. Kang-min had arranged it specifically so he and Yaira could have time alone. He took her to a small restaurant, nothing fancy, just quiet and intimate. They talked about everything, her childhood in Ghana, his growing up under the weight of family expectations, the loneliness they had both carried for so long. I'm sorry, he said over dessert, for not believing you. When the accusation happened, I should have at least asked. You didn't know me well enough to trust me. I should have tried. I knew something was wrong with the evidence. I felt it. But I've been lied to and used so many times that I stopped listening to my instincts. I won't make that mistake again. I'm sorry too, she said, for not telling you about the girls sooner. Once I started working there, I should have found a way. You were protecting them. I understand that now. Do you forgive me? I'm trying to, he said honestly. Some days are easier than others, but I want to, because what we have now, what we're building, it matters more than what we lost. After dinner, they walked along the Han River, the same place he had brought her before. But this time, When he reached for her hand, she took it. I'm not good at this, she admitted, letting people in, trusting that they'll stay. I'm not going anywhere. You say that now, Yaira. He stopped walking, turned to face her. I spent 5 years not knowing I had a family. Now that I do, nothing could make me leave. Not your fears, not your walls, nothing. You're stuck with me. She laughed, watery and surprised. That sounds like a threat. It's a promise. He kissed her then, soft and careful and full of all the things they had not yet said. She kissed him back, letting herself believe, just for a moment, that maybe this could work. When they pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers. I'm falling in love with you, he whispered. I thought you should know. Her breath caught. Kang Min, you don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know. I'm terrified, she admitted. Me too. But I think I'm falling too. His smile was brilliant and boyish, and nothing like the cold CEO she had first met. 3 months later, something shifted. The girls started calling him Appa instead of Mr. Kang Min. It happened naturally. Sewa first, then the others followed. The first time Akua said, Appa, watch this. Kang Min had to turn away to hide the tears in his eyes. He added them to his family register. Legally, officially, they were his. He set up trust funds, education accounts, futures secured. But the thing he treasured most was the drawing Efua made of their family. Four stick figures holding hands, the word us, written in shaky letters at the top. He had it framed in his office. Yaira moved into his penthouse, slowly, cautiously, bringing pieces of their life into his space until it became theirs. The minimalist decor gave way to crayon drawings. On the fridge, toys in the living room, the sounds of laughter and chaos. It was not always easy. They argued sometimes about parenting decisions, about work boundaries, about the years they had lost and could never reclaim. But they chose each other anyway. 6 months after the truth came out, Kang Min proposed, not with fanfare or grand gestures, but quietly, in their living room, with the girls supposedly asleep, but definitely eavesdropping behind their bedroom door. I don't need time to know, he said, holding a simple ring. I knew the night I met you. I just didn't understand it yet. Marry me. Let me be the family you needed. Let me be yours. Yaira looked at this man who had learned to braid hair and read bedtime stories and love her daughters as fiercely as she did. This man who had been a stranger, then a boss, then the father of her children. And now, impossibly, the person she could not imagine life without. Yes, she said. The girls burst from their room screaming, tackling both of them in a pile of limbs and laughter and joy. 1 year later, Yaira woke in a bed that was too big and somehow still too small when 3 little bodies invaded it every Sunday morning. Kang Min groaned beside her as Sewa landed on his stomach. It's morning. Get up. It's 6 in the morning, he mumbled, on a Sunday. That's morning, Akua said logically, bouncing on the mattress. Ifua crawled between Yaira and Kang Min, snuggling close. Can we have pancakes? We had pancakes last Sunday, Yaira said. So? Pancakes are good every Sunday. Kang Min cracked one eye open, looked at Yaira and smiled. That soft, private smile he saved just for moments like this. Pancakes it is, he said. In the kitchen, chaos erupted. Flour everywhere. Chocolate chips stolen directly from the bag. Sewa trying to flip pancakes and nearly setting off the smoke alarm. Akua and Efua arguing over whose turn it was to measure ingredients. Yaira stood at the edge of it all, watching her family. Her heart so full it hurt. Kang Min caught her eye, flour in his hair, a giggling Sewa on his hip, and mouthed, I love you. She mouthed it back. Later, after breakfast, after the kitchen was cleaned, mostly after the girls ran outside to play, in the small garden they had added to the penthouse terrace, Kang Min pulled Yaira close. You okay? More than okay. You got that look, the one you get when you're thinking too hard. She leaned into him, breathing in the smell of coffee and home. I was just remembering. 5 years ago, I was standing outside a restaurant in Itaewon. Fired, broke, completely alone. I thought my life was over. And now I have 3 beautiful daughters, a husband I love, a career I'm proud of, and a family I never thought I'd have. She looked up at him. It's not the life I planned. It's better. He kissed her temple. We should thank that restaurant owner. If he hadn't fired you, you wouldn't have gone to that bar. If I hadn't gone to that bar, I wouldn't have met you. If you hadn't met me, we wouldn't have them. He gestured to the window, where 3 girls were trying to catch butterflies, laughing and free. Do you ever regret it? Yaira asked quietly. The years you missed? He was quiet for a moment. I regret not knowing sooner, but I don't regret how we got here. Every painful step led to this, to us. I wouldn't change it. From outside, Akua yelled, Appa, Mama, come see. They went together, always together now. That night, after the girls finally fell asleep, after Yaira checked on them twice, because some habits never died, she found Kangmin on the terrace, looking out at the Seoul skyline. She wrapped her arms around him from behind. What are you thinking about? That night, he said, when I saw you at the bar, you asked me if life gets easier. I remember. You said no. You said we just get better at pretending it does. I was wrong. He turned to face her. It does get easier when you stop pretending, when you let the right people in, when you choose to build something real instead of hiding behind walls. That's very philosophical for someone who just spent 20 minutes trying to get Sewa to brush her teeth. He laughed. Fatherhood has made me sentimental. I like it. Yeah? Yeah. They stood there, holding each other, the city lights glittering below, 3 little girls safe and loved inside, a future stretching ahead of them, full of possibility. It was not the love story Yaira had imagined. It was messier than that. Harder, born from broken pieces and bad timing and secrets that nearly destroyed them before they began. But standing here, in her husband's arms, in a home filled with laughter and love and the beautiful chaos of family, Yaira knew one thing with absolute certainty. It was real. It was theirs. And it was more than enough. Inside, one of the girls called out, probably Sewa, asking for water. Kangmin sighed. I'll go. We'll go, Yaira corrected, because that was what they did now. Everything together. They went inside, and the door closed behind them. And somewhere in the Seoul night, their story continued. Not perfect, never perfect, but beautifully, wonderfully real. And for Yaira, who had once stood on a pavement, with nothing ahead of her, who had been broken and lost and convinced she would always be alone, that was everything.